the effective attack power of 2 Pokemon on the field.
A basic Pokemon that can do 90 to the defending Pokemon plus 30 to one of the bench Pokemon. That's a hard-hitting Pokemon.
So we've got a couple people asking online about some other card games where you have a sideboard or additional cards that you can switch between for games 2 and 3.
In Pokemon, you have the same 60 card deck all the time, and you are playing with all 60 cards every single game. In the World Championships and in Pokemon tournaments, you have to play with the same deck from the beginning of the tournament all the way through. So the deck is as much is being tested as much as the player's skill. Now, one of the things that happens is at the beginning of each hand, they have to put their 6 prize cards down, and that makes a difference. You don't know what's in those 6 prize cards, and that does add some variation and some uncertainty to your deck.
So you could see someone maybe ultra balling for a Darkrai and ending up with no Darkrai because they're all on the prize cards.
Darkrai, especially if they haven't used a card that will let them see through their entire deck.
So we just played a Pokemon Catcher, which is switching one Pokemon for another.
At the moment, I'm not sure
Yeah,
why,
I'm not really sure why they did that either.
That was the same Pokemon and no energy on them, but...
Because he's going to discard it anyway to Professor Juniper, so he might as well.
Right.
I think this might be a mind games thing.
Yes, a little bit.
For those of you familiar with some other games or not familiar with the card game as opposed to the video game, players are allowed to play as many trainers as they want, except for certain types of trainers, such as supporters. Professor Juniper, Professor Oak's New Theory are supporters. You can play one of those per turn.
Right.
Except that each of these decks is running a Pokemon with the power that lets you play a supporter from your opponent's hand. So you get effectively 2 or sometimes more of those per turn.
Correct. So it looks like Igor is off to not the best start. Shaman is not a Pokemon that he wants to attack with. And Darkrai obviously is already loading up. If Igor doesn't get another strong Pokemon, he's going to be in difficult shape.
Well, it looks like he got another strong Pokemon.
It looks like he got what he needed, yeah.
And as far as things go, is it ever advantageous to have no Pokemon on the bench? If you're sure you're not going to be knocked out this turn, having no Pokemon out there is going to save you 30 damage from Darkrai's ability.
That's, yes, but you never want to put that into your opponent's hand. Like, your opponent gets to draw a card, and if they draw a card that's going to do more than the card that they have out, you're going to be in trouble.
So that looks like that was a random receiver?
Random receiver.
So random receiver.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Okay, they flip over their cards one at a time until they reach one of those supporter cards, such as Professor Juniper or Professor Oak's New Theory, and that card gets added to their hand. So it's another way to get those powerful supporter cards into their hand.
So really it's like they're playing even more copies of those draw 7s, draw 6 cards, which makes sense. You want to see a lot of cards.
Yeah, the cards all kind of behave the same. It's a good way to, drop the hand you've got and draw a whole bunch of new cards. There's others that don't have that same effect. Nobody's playing Charon, but what it does is let you draw 3 cards off the top of your deck.
So what we just saw there was a couple dice on a card. That card's a dual ball. That's the only copy being run in the top. Or actually in these finals, I don't know about the top 8. And what dual ball does is you flip 2 coins, and for each coin you win, you get to search your deck for a basic Pokemon and put it in your hand.
Right, for each heads you flip, which is each evens.
In the interests of time, players will often roll dice rather than flip a coin. It's easier, it's less likely to kind of bounce its way off the table. So that was flipping 2 coins if you're reading the cards.
The instructions or the official rules of Pokemon, dictate a coin, but at this level we actually have them use dice exclusively because coins tend to fly off the table.
Right. You wouldn't want it hitting somebody in the audience. Going back to Random Receiver is also good because the cards that aren't the supporter go into your discard pile, right?
Actually, the cards that they actually go back into your deck.
Oh, so they get shuffled in. Okay.
Yeah, they get shuffled back in. So he's playing N, so they're both going to turn over their hands once again.
And we haven't seen any Pokemon knocked out yet, so it's going to be 6 new cards for each of them.
It's correct.
So we're facing down, is that 2 Darkrai's versus a Darkrai, a Terrakion, and...
that's the Shaman.
So it looks like perhaps Igor's in a bit of a better position at this point. He doesn't have quite as much hitting power, but he's got ones that are good against the Darkrai.
He's caught up considerably, and I think part of it was it looked like maybe Harrison was a little bit slow to get his energy out,
Right.
and it allowed Igor to get in there before Harrison could take out the Shaman while it was in the active position.
And he's already up basically a full turn worth of attacks with that 70 points of damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think we see, is that 2 Eviolites and a third one down here on the bench as well?
Yes, and that was an Eviolite that Igor played before Junipering. It was in his hand, and he didn't want to just waste it in the
Right.
discard pile.
Because
So
you're just going to discard all the cards you haven't played yet.
right, so he just played it before playing Juniper at very early in the match.
And Pokemon are limited to one of that class, that class of card attached to them.
Exactly. You can only have one Pokemon tool card, so in this case, they're all playing Eviolite, but if it was a Dark Claw or a Rocky Helmet or one of those cards, that's the only one they can play.
Right. So in this instance, it's not going to do much of an opportunity cost. He's not going to want to attach something else there and be unable to do so.
Exactly.
So we see a Darkrai subbed backwards for, is that a Mewtwo from
Let's
Harrison?
see, I believe so. He put Mewtwo up.
Yep.
He looks like he's kind of running shy on energy with 3 strong Pokemon out there, but with only 2 energy played so far.
And he potioned that Darkrai with 70 damage on him, so he's
Yeah.
down to 40 damage. Potion is kind of, is that another potion? No, it is a...
That was a regular potion, and Harrison.
So it's a potion and then a Trash Claw for another potion.
With a Junk Arm for
Or
another
Junk
one.
Arm,
Yeah.
right. And that's the potions and the max potion are what Harrison had kind of put in his deck in an expectation that he would be seeing a lot of Darkrai strategies.
You know, Darkrai does 30 damage to a bench Pokemon, but if you have a potion that heals 30 damage, it really slows down Darkrai's advances. And Harrison told us that he thinks that he's playing potion is not only great, but it's something that he hasn't seen in a lot of similar decks that he's faced.
So that's his key to getting to the finals, you think?
Apparently, and he's one game up, so I guess it's working on at the finals level as well.
And this is Harrison's first Worlds, right?
This is his first Worlds. He won the Florida Regionals and then finished in the top 16 at Nationals after going 9-0 in his preliminary rounds. But this is his first Worlds after playing for about 5 years in Pokemon tournaments.
Well, if you're going to go to your first Worlds, you might as well win it.
Yeah, he's going to think this is pretty easy at this point. But like we said, Igor, 4-time Portugal national champion for the last 4 years, and that's an automatic
4 years running.
4 years running, and that's an automatic berth to the World Championships. So
Wow.
he has a lot of experience at the top level in these kinds of situations.
A lot of frequent flyer miles, too, I'd assume.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's Pokemon Catcher, and Pokemon Catcher will let you choose 2 Pokemon to switch of your opponents.
So what lets you do if one of the bench Pokemon's weak, low on HP, lets you pull them in and knock them out?
Yeah, and it didn't look like he had the energy to knock out Darkrai, but I know the damage to knock out Darkrai, but he was clearly a target that he wants to take out.
Right. And you can also, if you're worried about an attack from the active Pokemon, push the active Pokemon away and have that be the focus of Pokemon Collector.
Absolutely. Although at that point Mewtwo did not have any energy on him, maybe a double Carlos would have been enough to get that rolling.
Well, double colorless and a Dark Patch?
Well, Mewtwo would not. Dark Patch will only be effective to put energy onto Darkness Pokemon. So it would not have had any effect on Mewtwo, or wouldn't have been allowed to be played on Mewtwo. But a double colorless energy with 3 more energy attached to it's a defending Darkrai does 100 damage minus the 20 for the Eviolite, but that's still a lot of damage. And see, now Darkrai just got taken out.
Taken
So.
out. And Eviolite seems like an interesting card here because it seems like it's more powerful than it should be with EXs because its restriction is it only works on basic Pokemon. And
Right.
EXs are basic Pokemon, but they're kind of a special kind of basic Pokemon. And it seems like, this is an unintended kind of unintuitive interaction here.
It is. It makes the math more difficult because these Pokemon do so much damage, but then you have 20 subtracted. Maybe you would have been able to knock him out with some really hard hit, but then the Eviolite slows it down. It actually kind of softens the blow of these Pokemon EX a little bit, which it keeps it competitive.
And so when Terrakion, has the weakness to the fighting, and when he hits for all of that damage, but there's an Eviolite on, how does that work?
Eviolite is calculated after the weakness is factored in. So if Terrakion were to do 90 damage, it would go to 180 damage first, and then the 20 would be subtracted. I'm pretty sure that's correct.
which is not quite enough to take out a
Not quite
Darkrai
enough.
by itself.
Maybe we'll see a plus power to kick it up to a little bit more.
And that's an extra 10, which would be exactly enough there.
Right, exactly.
So I do see plus power in both of the lists here, I believe?
I believe so,
Both of the lists, both players are running 2 copies of it.
And we saw it as, Igor played effectively to knock out a Mewtwo in the first game just before he himself got knocked out because he didn't get the Pokemon he needed for his bench.
That doesn't look like that's going to be the case
No,
this time, because if Igor knocks out both of these Pokemon, he'll be drawing 4 prize cards anyway.
Yes, and Igor definitely looks like he's in the better position right now.
This looks like he's retreating and subbing in a... Is that a Smeargle?
Brought in Smeargle so that he can play
Looks
Igor.
like
Harrison
N.
wanted to play Igor's N, so they're going to both shuffle up.
We're going to get 6 cards and 4 cards.
Right. This is the time where N is the perfect card for Harrison because he's going to outdraw Igor, and he needs to fill his bench. He needs some energy. Hopefully, he can get it.
At this point, if you guys are noticing the game slow down, both of the decks do kind of utilize their cards that have gone through the discard pile through cards like Dark Patch or Junk Arm.
Junk Arm, yeah.
So the players picking up the pile and looking through them is trying to decide whether or not they not only have a Junk Arm right away to play, but whether or not they want to look for that with one of the supporter cards.
The players, obviously, they can't look through their prize cards or through the deck or anything like that, but the discard pile is something that each player is allowed to look through their own and their opponents. So sometimes you'll see the opposing player grab the discard pile and float through them to see what cards they could be getting, the next time they play a Junk Arm or something like that.
Uesagi Tadao asks us, he knows there are banned Pokemon in the video game, but are there specific cards banned in the TCG as well?
TCG does not have any cards that are in the most recent sets that are banned, but we do, to keep the game fresh, retire old sets as new sets come on. So these players are playing all the way back to the beginning of the Heart Gold and Soul Silver set. Next year they'll play all the way back to the beginning of the Black and White set.
And that's all the expansions from the card game that say Black and White, Dragons Exalted, for example.
Dragon Exalted is coming out in a week, and then no specific cards are banned, but there are older cards that are no longer in play.
And then each card, ones that have been reprinted, are sometimes changed, right? So I know Potion, once upon a time, back in the heyday, would only heal 20 damage or 2 damage counters.
Right.
And now Potion heals 3 damage counters.
Right. When it was introduced, reintroduced just recently, it gained that extra 10 healing power.
So are you allowed to play with the older printed copy of Potion?
You are allowed to play with the older printed copy, but you follow the new rules.
So even the older ones heal 30 points.
Right. The rules are based on the title of the card. So if it says Potion, you go by what the most recent rules of Potion are.
Seems pretty simple. And you can play any language card, right?
Absolutely. And you'll see, especially, these kids are, these not necessarily kids at this level, these players are collectors as well as players, and so they like to get the rare cards in different languages, things like that. So you'll see those played once in a while.
Yeah, so you'll see the EXs. There's a couple versions of art for each of them. One that kind of has a full breakout of the frame.
Right. That is actually within the same set. The Pokemon EX that Igor is playing is the basic art, and then the one that Harrison is playing the full art. They're the same rules. They have the same card text. There's just one is more of a collector's card, and the other one is is not.
So you're, yeah, a little bit less likely to pull that second one in a booster pack.
Correct. Yeah, it's absolutely.
Would have to pay a little bit more for it if you
Maybe.
go looking for it on the secondary market. And then I think there's some artists here today too. So one of the things that some people do to get their Pokemon kind of fancier is get them signed by the artist.
Right. Although I might be wrong about this, but that is considered card marking. So at this level, they won't play with those cards. I mean, they'll absolutely do it, but they won't make it into their final decks.
So we see a potion here taking some damage off of that Mewtwo.
Apparently, yeah.
And some energy. So
Mewtwo now has its 2 energy. So if it were to choose to play, it could come in and do its powerful attack, the X-Ball attack.
right, which at this point is going to do a lot because there is sufficient energy on the other side.
Right. X-Ball does 20 damage times the number of total energy between Mewtwo and the defending Pokemon.
So that looks like 100 damage currently.
It could hit Darkrai EX for 100 damage at this point.
And if he throws a double colorless on Mewtwo for the next turn,
it will do about 140, and that's a lot of damage.
it's a lot of damage.
This is also a time where maybe he would prefer to bring in a Pokemon like Smeargle, if there was, or excuse me, Shaman, because he has enough damage to maybe take out Shaman, and Shaman can't attack, so it'd be a cheap card for him to take out.
So he'd say maybe Harrison is looking for a Pokemon catcher to switch that Darkrai to the bench.
Well,
and
possibly. These guys are a whole lot better than me, so I don't want to speculate too much on what they're going to do.
I know it looks like Igor is a lot more confident now than he was game 1.
He seems to be on a roll right now.
And despite being down a game, you know, he does not look nervous.
No, I think he's going to play an Ultra Ball here and get rid of 2 Pokemon. I'll be interested to see what he brings out. He's definitely set up well. So what Shaman does when it comes into play is allows you to rearrange all of the energy on all your Pokemon, how you see fit. His bench is full right now, so he'll have to get one of his Pokemon out of play. Either it'll get knocked out, or
there's actually is he running Super Scoop Up?
Or play Super Scoop Up.
Or play Super Scoop Up. I don't see a Super Scoop Up.
Igor is playing Super Scoop Up.
So.
He's in great shape right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be...
He's got only 1 prize card left, and Harrison does not have any Pokemon left on his bench.
At this point, Harrison, either way, you know, as soon as he loses one more Pokemon, that's game. So he is struggling. He has no prize cards taken.
He's back against the wall. We're heading quickly toward a 1-1 draw going into the 3rd game.
Yeah. Which would be exciting because then
Absolutely.
we'll see one more game from these guys.
That's when the pressure's really on.
A quick follow-up to that question, somebody asked about alternative formats, and there is a format wherein you can play any cards from any of the expansions, but it doesn't appear in any of the Battle Tour or the professional circuit. Right.
We stick with our legal format. There is an unlimited format that when we play in our larger tournaments, we stick with the legal. The unlimited is a challenge. The Pokemon trading card game's been around for a long time, and there are a lot of cards out there. So part of it is the knowing all the rules. These players are familiar with the current crop of cards, and if there was a large number of cards, they just wouldn't know what to do. Yeah.
So I think here we see the portrait ability trying to decide whether or not he wants to play a supporter, and I think he may have chosen not to.
It looks like it, yeah.
So it may be that the only supporter was N in his hand. I didn't quite see the hand well enough, but he might want to avoid playing N because he might want to avoid giving Harrison a new hand of cards, perhaps giving him an answer that he draws off of that.
It looks like it.
At this point, Harrison's got one chance to draw an answer, and something. If he used an N, he'd have.
You might be giving Harrison what he needs by playing an N for him.
Which is So sometimes even if you can use that card draw, you don't necessarily want to.
One of the rules of Smeargle is if there is a supporter card in the opponent's hand, you don't have the choice to not play it. You have to play it. And so if Harrison had only an N, Igor would have to play that N card. And that would be devastating when Harrison has 6 prize cards left and Igor has only 1.
So we see a Darkrai on the bench for Harrison, frantically trying to dig his way out of here, but I don't think it's going to happen for him.
He's got his back against the wall. He needs to take some Pokemon out.
Oh. We saw the attack take out Smeargle there, and Harrison gets a prize card, but he's still four Pokemon to knock out. That's or correct. 2 Pokemon EXs, so he's still very, very much back-footed. Yeah, that hand is the I know I'm going to lose. Let's just get it over with.
Harrison has that look on his face. That'll do it.
So, yep, the player's going to be going to the 3rd game, which will decide who we get for the World Champion.
For the Masters Division World Champion. This has been a great match so far.
So, really quick, while they are shuffling up and getting ready to present, we're going to take this opportunity to have